What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with what's next for Max Holloway following UFC 318 win. Early on in the headliner for UFC 318, it looked like Max Holloway might make Dustin Poirier's retirement fight a short one. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. While that didn't turn out to be the case, Bless did record a decision victory over the Diamond to retain the BMF belt. So what's next for the former featherweight champion and BMF champ? That's a good question. With the victory, Holloway returned to the win column, following his knockout loss to Ilia Topuria last October, when the latter was the featherweight king. Now that Topuria holds the lightweight title, could we see a rematch with Holloway materialize? Given he just defeated one of the greatest lightweights of this generation, that seems kind of unlikely, as Topuria has been gunning for a bout with Paddy Pimblett and Arman Tsarukyan is the #1 contender rankings-wise. But on account of what Holloway has accomplished to date, he very well could be one big win away from getting tapped for a title shot at 155. During the post-fight press conference, Dana White talked about Max Holloway potentially fighting Ilia Topuria next. This is what he had to say.
He's in a great position right now. He just defends that BMF title. He's ranked number 4 in the world there, and anything is possible for Max right now.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you think Ilia has done enough to fight Max for the BMF title and the lightweight title at the same time as Ilia?
Yes, I do.
Would you want to see Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria for both the lightweight and the BMF belt? Let us know in the comments below. Dustin Poirier came out during his post-fight interview and said that he was not happy with how the judges scored the fight. Dustin believes the fight was a lot closer than how the judges scored the fight. Here's what he had to say.
You're getting celebrated, but felt like you were more annoyed and pissed off about the result.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I wanted to win. Max is a great fighter, tough competitor. I just felt, being inside the eye of the storm, it felt a lot closer to me. I really thought it might have been 2-2 going into the fifth. Mike Brown checked the scorecards when we got to the locker room, and I think the judges gave me different rounds. So I don't know, I think all the judges gave him the second round. I thought I almost had him out. He hurt me too, but I thought my shot was, when I followed up with elbows, I was cracking him. He told me in the medical tent, he said, man, you had me out. We couldn't hear the bell. So it felt, being in the fight, it felt like a lot closer than that. When I heard the judges 49, whatever, I was like, no way. It was closer than that. But like the man says, it is what it is.
This morning, Max Holloway sent the following message to Dustin on X. It was an honor to share the octagon not once, not twice, but 3 times with this man. Thank you, Dustin, for being a warrior in the cage and even a greater person out of it. The sport is gonna miss you. Enjoy your retirement. Paid in full. Diamonds are forever. Dana White not interested in Jon Jones headlining UFC White House. Recently, it was revealed that the UFC and the president were working on a huge UFC White House card. Now, this has been in the news all week, so we won't bore you with the details. Recently, Jon Jones made it clear he is indeed interested in fighting on that card. Last night, Jon went on X and responded to a fan criticizing him for the retirement by saying, "Why the negativity? My last fight, I beat the greatest heavyweight of all time for a record-breaking 16 title wins. I did it in my home state at Madison Square Garden, and if that wasn't my last time fighting, the next one will be at the White House at the biggest event in the history of our sport." Then, after UFC 318, Dana White was asked about Jon Jones fighting on the White House card, and Dana did not seem interested in the idea.
Jon Jones says he wants to be on there too, and he says he would fight whoever the champion is at that time. But would you be okay with him coming back and potentially winning that belt again? And you might have to go through.
Well, it's not even about him winning the belt. I mean, how I felt about him. I can't risk putting him in big positions in a big spot and have something go wrong.
Renato Moicano called out for lying about UFC lawsuit. Renato Moicano has been taking heat after revealing he refused to take money from the settlement for the antitrust suit brought against Zuffa and the UFC. Not only that, now some observers have accused Money of not being completely honest about what went down. Recently, the lightweight reported via the Show Me the Money podcast that he turned down the money he was offered as part of the lawsuit. It's also been reported that Moicano inferred that he turned down a 6-figure sum. Well, as noted, not everyone is on board with Moicano for doing so, and since then, he's responded to his critics via social media. Here's some of what he had to say. I'm amazed by how many people are cursing me out for my decision not to take the money from the lawsuit against the UFC. I believe those who are criticizing me haven't stopped to think about something simple. You shouldn't need a contract for your word to mean something. I agreed to the terms of the contract. Moicano also had this to say about the situation. I don't agree with a lot of the things the UFC does. For example, not allowing fighters to put their sponsors on their fight shorts. But when I signed the contract, I accepted those terms. If you're not satisfied, you can simply choose not to sign the contract. Monopolies are created by law. UFC bought other promotions they agree that was free market. We have other shows like PFL, so there's known legal barriers for the other promotion. If you're a big MMA fan, you know that the debate around whether the UFC compensates fighters enough, especially compared with other major sports, is nothing new. The same can be said for the debate around whether the UFC constitutes a monopoly and whether fighters actually benefit from the quote free market. But one observer is also questioning whether Moicano exaggerated how much money he actually turned down. Here was the post. 31 cents times total compensation in class period plus 13,800 times number of fights in class period is the formula they're using to determine payouts. If your payout was $200,000, that means you made over $500,000 for your first 3 UFC fights. If fighters were regularly making that much on entry-level UFC deals, then there wouldn't have been a lawsuit. What do you make of all this, and do you agree with Moicano's arguments here? Dustin Gaethje talks about his next UFC fight. Ilia Topuria has not sounded overly keen on the idea of fighting Dustin Gaethje next, but the longtime contender and walking highlight reel is still driving hard for that bout. Since Topuria bombed out Charles Oliveira last month at UFC 317 to win the lightweight crown, he shot down the possibility of fighting Gaethje next. Topuria has made it clear he wants to fight his rival Paddy Pimblett. When asked about Gaethje, however, Topuria essentially argued the former WSOF champ is old news. All this comes at a time when Gaethje's manager has claimed that the highlight will retire if he's not tapped for a title shot. And so during a recent fan Q&A, Gaethje was asked about fighting the new champion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fight that I want. You know, obviously I'm biased. I'm going to fight for what I feel like I deserve. But he feels the same. She feels the same. We're all biased towards ourselves. It's me or Armin, I believe somebody has to fight him this year, and I think I'm in a better spot than Armin, so someone's going to fight him. I hope it's MSG, New York City. I get to fight him, and then I get to defend it on the White House lawn. That's what I'm planning for.
It'll be interesting to see what happens here. There's no doubt Topuria versus Pimblett would be massive, but might the UFC want the baddie to win one more fight? And if so, could they look at Gaethje? Dana White has repeatedly said that Arman Tsarukyan needs to win one more before he gets tapped for another title fight, after he withdrew late from a scrap with Islam Makhachev in January. Speaking of Tsarukyan, recently he was asked by Hype FC who he thinks would win if a prime Conor McGregor had faced Ilia Topuria. Tsarukyan said this: "Prime Conor, due to his elusiveness, due to his distance management. At his peak, he didn't get hit at all. He just didn't let anyone touch him." Tony Ferguson was also doing the interview, and he proceeded to agree with Armin's take. Here's some of what Ed Kukui had to say. "Ilia seems to be a little bit more of a counter fighter, you know? He clipped Charles as he was walking right into it. He has punches and bunches, but Conor's the same way. He likes to wait for everybody, be poised. So I think if Conor was at the top of his game, he's a little bit more rangy, carries a little bit more weight. I think honestly, he probably would be handling Ilia." Do you agree with Ferguson and Tsarukyan here? And who do you want to see Topuria battle next? UFC updates. Let's take a look at some UFC and fight updates. Recently, it was reported that Sam Patterson will be fighting at the UFC September 6 card in Paris, France, where he'll fight welterweight Trey Waters. England's Patterson is coming off a stoppage win over Danny Barlow in March and has won 3 straight fights. Waters, from the US, has recorded a decision win over Billy Ray Goff in May and has also won 3 in a row. The October 18th card in Vancouver, Canada has picked up a strawweight fight as Stephanie Luciano will face Javina Oliveira. Luciano is coming off a split decision loss to Sam Hughes in April after going undefeated in her 4 fights prior. Oliveira, who's also from Brazil, has not fought since October 2023 when she dropped a decision to Tainara Lisboa. Oliveira had won 7 straight before that loss. And Park IG recently was the first to report that Alex Perez has had to withdraw from an August 9th fight with Steve Erceg. As a result, the latter will now battle Hyung Sung Park. Australia's Erceg will be looking to end a 3-fight losing skid, as the former title challenger is coming off a unanimous decision loss to Brandon Moreno in March. Park, meanwhile, submitted Carlos Hernandez in his last fight, which went down in May. The South Korean fighter has won 10 in a row. And it looks like we'll see former light heavyweight champion Yuri Prochazka in the octagon soon. Recently, Yuri reported via social media that he started a training camp, but Prochazka said that he's waiting to sign a contract and did not say who he's fighting. The Czech Samurai will be competing for the first time since January, when he took out fellow former champion Jamal Hill. And bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili has let it be known that he also wants to fight at the UFC's White House card next year. Recently, the Georgian star called for a fight on the card, while also noting that he's an American citizen. Do you see the UFC booking Merab to fight at the White House event? And who do you want to see him fight? Luke Rockhold talks about Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. Luke Rockhold has trained with both Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus du Plessis, so if you're like most MMA fans and are pretty pumped to see this fight, chances are you'll be interested to hear his take on the matchup. Chimaev is booked to face the middleweight champion at UFC 319 on August 16. Recently, Rockhold was a guest on Submission Radio, and since he's trained with both Boers and DDP, he was asked his prediction. Here was some of what the former UFC and Strikeforce champion had to say about Chimaev. He's a beast, he's a wrestler, he's a grappler, he's going to get relentless pressure. He's going to start fast and hard. Can Dricus take that the first 2 rounds? That's what life's about for his opponents. Can he withstand the barrage? Because he's going to bring it. And like a lot of other people have said, Rockhold also believes Chimaev could be in trouble if he doesn't finish DDP early. I don't like those opportunities for him. I've trained with DDP a lot. He's tough. He ain't going to go away. You've got to dominate him from start to finish, or you've got to finish him early. I just don't see how Khamzat's going to keep that pressure, his intensity. You can only keep that for so long. DDP is tough. He's tough as hell. People don't give him a lot of credit. He's just awkward. He's got weird timing and rhythm, and he's good. He mixes it up. He's very confident. He's got good grappling, decent wrestling, and some funky striking, but it works. What do you think of Rockhold's prediction, and who do you see winning this fight? All that aside, Chimaev recently scored a new pair of camouflage sneakers from content creator and Jackson podcaster Bear de Guido. Must be nice, right? Reinier de Ridder reveals game plan for Robert Whittaker fight. Reinier de Ridder will have the biggest and likely toughest test he's had in the octagon to date when he faces Robert Whittaker on July 26. So how does the former one champ plan to defeat one of the greatest middleweights of his generation? Well, recently, the Dutch Knight spoke with MMA Junkie, and while discussing his game plan for Bobby Knuckles, here was some of what he had to say. I cannot give him time to look and see because he has real knockout power and very nice, clean, straight shots. I've got to be very mindful of that. The pressure is the most important thing for me. I've got to put pressure on him. I've got to bring the heat early because I cannot let him move. I cannot let him see what's happening. I cannot let him play. He likes to bounce. He likes to look, and I'm sure I'm going to take him down. It's what I like the most, and I have to put him on his at least once, but we'll see if I can do damage meanwhile before. There's no question that Whittaker likes to bounce and that he has knockout power. Just ask Iskram Aliskerov. But it'll be very interesting to see if RDR can take Whittaker down at least once, as he noted he'll need to do. On paper, that seems like it could be a tough task. While de Ridder is a ridiculously dangerous fighter on the ground, he doesn't have the wrestling game of, say, Khamzat Chimaev. But what do you think of de Ridder's game plan? And do you see him going 4-0 in the octagon on July 26th? What's next for Paulo Costa after UFC 318? Paulo Costa was kind of in a must-win situation at UFC 318, and not only did Bohachinha deliver a victory, he proved the odds makers wrong in doing so. Costa faced surging middleweight Roman Kopylov in the co-main, and from the get-go, the Brazilian came out firing a steady stream of kicks and punches at the Russian. Costa bested Kopylov in most of the exchanges, and he also hurt the noted striker on more than one occasion. After 15 minutes of action, it was clear that Bohachinha would be named the winner. And he was. So what's next for Costa, now that he's ended a 2-fight losing skid? Immediately after the fight, Costa was quick to fire a warning shot at Khamzat Chimaev, as he accused the top contender of sending his wife a direct message. But since Chimaev is set to face the middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319 next month, a lot has to fall into place before a bout between him and Costa can actually take place. Realistically, Costa will likely get tapped to fight another middleweight ranked in the top 10. As prior to UFC 318, he had lost 4 of his last 5 fights and had slipped out of the top 10. Could we see Costa face, say, Roman Dolidze or Jared Cannonier? Who do you want to see Bohachinha face next? Khamzat responds to Paulo Costa accusations. During the UFC 318 fight week, Paulo Costa made some wild claims that Khamzat was messaging his girlfriend bad things on social media. All fight week, Paulo Costa seemed very furious with Khamzat, and during his Octagon interview, he called out Khamzat like he promised. Paulo said the following during his Octagon interview. "Everybody knows I hate that guy. Everybody knows who. That for Khamzat Chimaev. My wife is over here. He DM'd her. He said bad things about me and her, but he never sent to me because he is a coward. Chimaev, you are a coward. I'm here. I'm going to look for you. I'm going to chase you, and I will not stop until I get to you." Well, Khamzat saw everything and has finally now reacted to Costa's claims. Khamzat went on X and said, "It was she who wrote to me, Habibi." So yeah, Khamzat is claiming that Costa's girlfriend was the one who started the conversation with him. But everything aside, would you be interested in seeing these two fight? We have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day.